visualization for the structure. Yeah. Okay, you can see here. Okay, I want you to mention what is this? What structure is it? Anyone knows? You can see the structure is like a Mickey Mouse structure. What is it? Midbrain, right? Mesencephalon, yeah, midbrain. So what you see at Atlas, yeah, will appear similar with what you see in the real imaging. Okay, this is the mesencephalon. This one is the pedunculus cerebri, right? This is the fossa interpeduncularis. This one is the nucleus rubra. This one is the colliculus superior or colliculus inferior. Yeah, depend the level of the slice. Okay. Okay, I will continue for the variation or additional imaging for CT scan and MRI. Yeah. The one that I have mentioned before, yeah, CTA or CT angiography, it uses contrast. This one is the appearance of CT angiography. So you can see the vessel, yeah, the vessel of the inside the brain. Okay, a little bit different with the one that used no contrast. Okay. And MRI, I'm sorry, MRA or MR angiography with contrast, it's the same with the CT angiography. Yeah? It's a similar appearance, yeah? In which the vessel will be appear. DTI is diffusion tensor imaging. This is a kind of specific sequence of MRI in which we can see the track. Okay, we can see the track inside the brain. Yeah, so you can see here. There is the fasciculus longitudinalis anterior or anterior commissure. This one is the fasciculus longitudinal or arcuate. Yeah, you can see all of the track inside the brain using the DTI sequence or diffusion tensor imaging. For this one, fMRI is functional MRI. So here, this sequence use the concept or principle of blood oxygen level dependent. So when we actively activate, yeah, some of the brain center, for example, if I raise my hand like this, yeah, there will be a part of the brain that is more consume oxygen, right? Anyone knows where is it? Where the brain center that will more active than the other? If I raise my hand like this, so the primary motor cortex, right? The primary motor cortex, which is located at precentral gyrus. Still remember the homunculus motoric, right? There is part of the hand, the head, the tongue, the inferior extremity. Yeah? So the precentral gyrus that somatotopically for the hand, it will be appear like this if using the functional MRI. Okay, because it will consume more oxygen than the other part. Okay. Also, if I speak like this, blah, 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 so which brain center will be more active than the other center? Which one? Yes? Yes, right, Broca's area. Okay, left or the, is it the left part of the or the right part? Broca's area? In the left or right hemisphere? Left, okay, dominancy, okay, or lateralization. Okay. Okay, I will leave the imaging. Yeah. Now let's step to the next intervention. Okay, this one is the biopsy. Yeah, biopsy is take a sample, yeah, sample of tissue. It could be brain tissue. It could be lesion such as tumor or maybe the dural tissue. Yeah, to be examined in pathologic laboratory. Okay, it's called biopsy. Nah, biopsy can be done in brain with two procedure. Is it open biopsy or stereotactic biopsy? In open biopsy, means it is a invasive procedure by which we remove a skull, remove the skull, and then directly we will take some tissue from the brain. It is open biopsy. There is the other alternative. There is a minimal invasive procedure called the stereotactic biopsy, in which stereotactic is actually a process by which we, neurosurgeon, using the previous examination, MRI or CT, and then put it into a software, like this, the software, and the software will calculate, make an algorithm, calculate and make an algorithm. So the site that we want to take, it become a coordinate. It become a coordinate by calculation from the software. Okay. Now the coordinate, will be we can achieve the target coordinate by using this frame. Okay, this frame. This is a stereotactic frame, that actually it's connected with the software. So it also already has a algorithm that connect between the software and the hardware. Now, using a small needle like this, that is put in the hardware, we can achieve the target precisely, specifically and precise, very, very precise. Okay, the range, the range of what we achieve is not more than 0.1 millimeter. Okay, so it's very, very precise. Okay, because it's already calculated in the software. Okay, is it hard to do this? Because it's like a simple, it's like very simple. You just put the CT scan or MRI imaging in the software, and the computer will make a calculation for you, and then you just arrange the hardware and put the needle. Is it that simple? No, it's not that simple, because we have to know also the anatomical aspect, of the brain, so we can done this procedure without any injury to the brain, because when we put the needle, the biopsy needle, we have to there is a lot of anatomical structure that we have to preserve, preserve. Okay. Next is about the brain mapping. This is the first brain mapping, which is the WADA test. WADA test is also called the intracarotid sodium amorbarbital procedure. Why? Because we use this substance, sodium amorbarbital. Okay, sodium amorbarbital is a substance that injected intracarotid, that injected via the carotid artery, intracarotid. Okay, so in WADA test, the usefulness is to find the lateralization about the cerebral language and also the memory representation of each hemisphere. So we first put or inject the amorbarbital sodium at the right carotid artery, and then next in the left carotid artery. And for each of the procedure, after the injection of the amorbarbital, we will instruct the patient to do something, or to read something, or to write something, naming something, so we can see which part of the hemisphere is the dominant hemisphere. Okay, because not all of the patient or all of the human has cerebral dominance, or for language is always in the left side. It's not always like that. There is a 30 to 40% patient that using the left hand for his dominance has cerebral dominance, or has the language dominance in the right side. Okay, so if we want to resect, resect it, remove some part of the brain parenchyma, ya, parenkim otak diambil. We have to know which one is the one that dominance, the brain dominance for language, yeah, because we doesn't want to remove part of the patient brain that is for language, yeah. It will cause the neurological deficit or decrease their quality of life. Okay, so this is the WADA test. This one is the direct cortical stimulation and also intracranial electrode implantation. So direct cortical stimulation is almost the same with WADA test, but in here we directly stimulate, okay, using these tools, yeah. This is the bipolar stool, okay, stimulate the brain, yeah. And in this surgery, an awake patient, jadi pasiennya bangun di sini deh ya. Pada prosedur ini tuh pasiennya bangun. Awake patient, we instruct the patient, yeah, to say something, yeah, maybe to do some motoric movement, okay, to read something, to write something, yeah. So actually it's the same. We want to know the margin, yeah, the margin or the boundaries of some center, yeah. For example, this one. This procedure is there is a tumor, yeah, on this patient that we want to remove. The tumor is located inside, yeah, inside, so deep inside the cortex, subcortical. We cannot see it right here, but from the imaging, we can see that the tumor is located in eloquent area, important area, yeah, near the language area, right? Now, if we doesn't know, yeah, the boundaries of the which one is the normal one, which one is the abnormal one, yeah, or that has the function for language, yeah, it will be catastrophic. Yeah, it can be catastrophic because when we resect the tumor, maybe we also resect the important part. Now, we doesn't want that. We doesn't want to do that. So directly, yeah, stimulate the cortex. Yeah, we can see from the awake patient. Yeah, the awake patient. We want him or her to read something, to do the language skill. Okay. So we can next we can see the boundaries, which one the one that we can resect and with which one we have to preserve. So post-operatively there is no new neurological deficit. Okay. This one intracranial electrode implantation to know the epileptic focus, yeah, epileptic focus directly in the brain. Okay, next, this is the puncture of the ventricle, we call ventricular puncture or pungsi ventricle. This ventricular puncture is used to can be diagnostic, can be therapeutic, yeah, because here we remove, yeah, or we take the cerebrospinal fluid sample, the CSF sample, and ventricular puncture like this only can be done in patient less than 2 years old. Okay, less than 2 years old. Why 2 years old? Because in a patient older than 2 years, this structure will already closed. Ya, fontanella anterior or anterior fontanel, ubun-ubun, ya, ubun-ubun. Kalau bayi itu kan masih terbuka. Jadi di situ kita bisa tusuk sebagai akses untuk mengambil LCS. Ya, tapi dia sudah akan menutup pada usia 2 tahun. Jadi older than 2 years old, you cannot done this procedure. Okay. Okay, this is digital subtraction angiography. It's an invasive diagnostic procedure to visualizing the blood vessel like this. Okay, it's a fluoroscopic technique, that we inject contrast through the femoral artery or radial artery, and then we can see the anatomical structure of the vessel. Okay, you can see here, this is the internal carotid artery, C1, C2, C3, C4, and so on. We have learned about it at the previous lecture. Okay. Okay, now is the therapeutic part of brain intervention. A lot of this part will correlate with neurosurgeon, yeah, neurosurgical aspect. Okay, we have three terminology right here: craniotomy, craniectomy, cranioplasty. So what is the difference? So actually, craniotomy is a standard procedure that a neurosurgeon done in the operating room. But we have another procedure that have different terminology, yeah, like this one: craniotomy, craniectomy. So you can read here, tomy, yeah, I mean craniotomy is remove part of the skull, yeah. So we remove part of the skull with burr, and craniotome, yeah. So it's like a knife, yeah, knife, but specific for the bone, yeah, craniotome. And then it used to expose intracranial structure. Yeah? Is it the dura? Is it the brain parenchyma? Yeah? Maybe to remove blood, maybe to remove tumor. Yeah? And then after the procedure, yeah, the skull is put back to its initial site. Okay, so right here. Okay, this is the first, and then we open, and then we put it back to its initial site. That is craniotomy. The difference with craniectomy is we remove part of the skull, yeah, same, to expose the intracranial structure. But after the procedure, we didn't put it back. Yeah, we didn't put it back the bone, yeah, for some reason. Yeah, for some reason. And where does the bone is put? We can put it in the contralateral part, yeah, contralateral part. So in the subgaleal, yeah, subgaleal space, or at the abdomen. Okay. After some period, yeah, after some period, maybe 1 month until 6 months after the indication is for the prerequisite of the next procedure is fulfilled, we can put it back, yeah, put the bone, yeah, back to its initial place. Okay, so we take the one that already put in the abdomen or in the contralateral subgaleal area and put it back. Call it the cranioplasty. Yeah. So cranioplasty, the replacement, yeah, of the removed skull. Okay, it can be used autograft or allograft. Autograft means using the patient own skull. Okay, that is the autograft, or allograft. Allograft means use some synthetic material. Yeah, it could be titanium, it could be acrylic, yeah, and the other. Okay, that is the difference between craniotomy, craniectomy, and cranioplasty. Clear? Is it clear? Okay, this is the example. This is the patient with epidural hematoma. So accumulation of blood at the epidural space. First, because it has to be removed, yeah, the blood. So the first step, we make an incision, so we can expose the skull. Okay. After we expose the skull, yeah, we have to remove the skull, yeah, because the is located beneath the skull, right? Beneath the skull. Okay, after we perform this one is already done, the craniotomy, yeah, because the bone is removed, yeah, so we can see the intracranial structure, yeah, expose the intracranial structure. We see here, oh, this is the blood. Okay, this is the epidural blood. Remove the epidural blood, we can remove the epidural blood, and after, yeah, after the procedure, we put the bone back here. Yeah, so we also perform cranioplasty, okay, at the same time. Yeah, okay, this is the example of craniotomy and cranioplasty at the same time. This is different. This is a little bit different. This is of the patient who already performed craniectomy. Yeah, craniectomy. So the people with craniectomy, after the brain is shrink because the udem is already recovery from the udem, it will be appear like this. Yeah? So the head is like a concave, ya. Jadi kayak cekung seperti itu kepalanya. But it's normal, ya, because there is no bone right here. Is it safe? It's safe, ya. As long as no trauma, ya, direct trauma to this part, so it's safe, ya. Because the dura mater, you know, the dura mater is a very tough structure that can protect the brain, yeah, the brain. And this one, the patient perform cranioplasty, okay, so it will become normal again. Yeah, this is the example of a patient that already performed craniectomy and then cranioplasty. The cranioplasty is done or performed in the other, yeah. So next time, yeah, not in the same period of surgery, yeah, but different time of surgery. Okay, next, this is the CSF diversion, yeah, divert the CSF. So maybe sometime there is a accumulation of the cerebrospinal fluid, yeah, accumulation of the cerebrospinal fluid because of obstruction, yeah, obstruction, maybe because any tumor, yeah, that obstruct the CSF pathway, okay, or maybe there is a disturbance in its resorption. We call it hydrocephalus. Pasti udah pernah pada dengar ya kalau hydrocephalus, ya. Jadi hydrocephalus is accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid inside the head, ya, inside the brain. Nah, is it dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous because it can increase the intracranial pressure inside the head. Okay, because normally the CSF will be drained into the sinus sagittalis superior and then until the vena jugularis interna to get into the systemic circulation. Remember, yeah, the previous lecture, yeah. Okay. Now here, if there is any accumulation, we have to find another way, yeah, so the cerebrospinal fluid can be removed, right? This is the procedure. We call it shunt. Okay, shunt. Shunt means we make another pathway. Yeah. Where is the pathway to remove the CSF? We found we should find a potential space. Yeah. Inside our body, there are also many potential space. Yeah. Such as the third space inside the abdomen. Block 1.2. We call it the peritoneal space. Okay, or maybe I'm sorry, block 1.3. Yeah, block 1.2 is you learn about the pleura. Yeah, pleura is also a potential space, yeah, that can be used for the drainage of LCS. So if we drain the LCS, yeah, CSF from the ventricle, yeah, to the peritoneum, we call it ventriculoperitoneal shunt. So like right here, yeah, ventriculo, and then we put it to the peritoneum, ventriculoperitoneal shunt. It will be absorbed, yeah, in the peritoneum. If you use another space, yeah, for example, VA is mean ventriculoatrial. Atrial mean atrium of the heart. Okay, yeah, right atrium of the heart. Or maybe if you use pleura, we call it ventriculopleural shunt. Okay, so it depends which potential space that we use to divert the CSF. Okay, it done in the hydrocephalus case. Yeah. Okay, this one is the microvascular decompression. The next surgical therapeutic brain intervention. So microvascular decompression is procedure to separate a vascular conflict from a related nerve. So there is a case in which there is a neurovascular conflict. Yeah, neurovascular conflict means there is a attachment, yeah, or connection, direct connection between a vessel and a nerve. Yeah, between a vessel and a nerve. This is the three common cases. Yeah, first is trigeminal neuralgia, second is hemifacial spasm, and the third is glossopharyngeal neuralgia. If I'm not mistaken, I have already mentioned it in the vessel lecture, yeah, brain vascularization lecture. So in trigeminal neuralgia, there is a conflict or direct connection between the trigeminal nerve, the fifth cranial nerve, with the superior cerebellar artery. When it's conflict, it can cause pain. It can cause pain that is felt in the region of the fifth cranial nerve, ophthalmic branch, maxillar branch, mandibular branch. So it will be very, very painful. Very, very painful, and it is intractable pain. Intractable means cannot be alleviated with drugs. So we have to separate it surgically, like this. We put some tools right here. It's called Teflon between the touch between the SCA and also the fifth cranial nerve. The other is the same. Hemifacial spasm is facial nerve with ICA. Glossopharyngeal neuralgia is the glossopharyngeal nerve with. Okay, this is epileptic surgery. So people with epilepsy, intractable epilepsy, can be therapeutically perform a surgical procedure. Perform surgical procedure to make the seizure is disappear, or diminished, or decrease the frequency of the seizure. It depends, it depends in the causa of the seizure, because epilepsy or seizure can have many different etiology. For example, maybe tumor. Tumor can be causing the epilepsy. If the tumor is the one that caused the epilepsy, so we have to remove that lesion, the tumor. We call it lesionectomy. Or maybe there is an example of the most common type of epilepsy is what we call the temporal sclerosis. Temporal sclerosis. So there is a sclerosis at the temporal lobe. The one that is sclerotic is hippocampus. Hippocampus. So we have to remove that part. So principally, we have to take or remove the part that caused the epilepsy. How do we know which one is the one that we have to remove? That is his job. Dr. Desin's job to know where is the one that we have to resect. Okay. Next, this is the vascular surgery. Dr. Tommy, previously in the previous lecture, has already mentioned about the aneurysm. Aneurysm, so a saccular dilatation of the cerebral vessel, like this, for example. This is the saccular aneurysm. So we can perform many intervention to prevent this aneurysm from rupture. Because the what is danger from aneurysm is when it's rupture. We can put some clip right here, or we can put in the vascularly a coil or a diverter. So principally, we have to make the aneurysm is prevented from filled by blood. Prevented from filled by blood. So maybe it's clipped or make a diverter using diverter or coil like this. Okay, thank you. That is from me about the brain intervention. Next, maybe from Dr. Desin. Time is yours. Morning, Dek. Selamat pagi. Semangat, Dek. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, good morning everybody. Selamat pagi dan sehat semua ya. Okay, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Desin Pambudi. Yeah. I also graduated from this faculty. Yeah. On 2008, and I continue studied in co-assistant until until on 2008. Yeah. And then I work at emergency department in Sarjito Hospital about for almost 5 years. So long, yeah. Different with Dr. Dian, directly to PPDS. Oh. Oh, 5 years. Wait for 5 years before to continue in specialty. I study in neurology, yeah, on 2030 until 2017. Yeah, 17, 13 and to 2017. And thanks God, Alhamdulillah, on 2018, yeah, I start fellowship in Kuala Lumpur, UMMC, UM Medical Center, Universitas Malaya, on epilepsy, yeah, epilepsy for 1 year. So in my department, neurology, together with Pras, Dr. Dian Pras, we built an epilepsy team in Sarjito Hospital. So epilepsy is not only supports treated by medication, but if the epilepsy established as a refractory epilepsy, yeah, or resistant of drugs, yeah, we have one choice, that this is surgery. Yeah. So we resect the genshed or generator of epilepsy. This called as epileptogenic zone. Yeah, as Dr. Dian Prasto said, that we have learned, put a team, and yeah, we hope that someday in Sarjito and our center, we can operate or surgical or resect the epileptogenic zone on the epileptic refractory patient. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the intervention in my department is about diagnostic too and to therapeutic also as well. Yeah. Belum ini Mas? Oh gitu, siap. Yeah. Yang ini Mas? Langsung connect. Oh, oke. Okay. Ini dulu. Oh, sorry. Reverse. Yeah. About deep brain stimulation, Dr. Dian Prasto has been teach about this, about vagal nerve stimulation, EEG depth electrode, intraoperative neurophysiology monitoring, thrombectomy mechanical, and DSA. Almost of this in our center can doing well, yeah. So if you have some experience or have learned about vagal nerve stimulation, and this is have not done in our center, but EEG, IOM, and DSA is established in our center. Okay. Oh. This one, deep brain stimulation. We stimulate the part of our brain. It should play, but cannot play. Mas, masih ke sini aja, Mas. Masih di sini aja. Oh iya, salah. Yang ini, Mas. Ini bisa nggak, Mas? Okay, cannot, yeah. So deep brain stimulation is a system to control tremor, yeah, or chronic movement disorder like Parkinsonism, and electrodes are connected, yeah, via subcutaneous wire to neurostimulator implanted under the skin near the clavicle, yeah. So os clavicularis, yeah. So like electricity stimulation direct to the brain, so we can stop the Parkinsonism. Parkinsonism is apa deh? Mash topeng, muka topeng bahasa Inggrisnya. Ya, muka topeng and bradykinesia. Jadi pasiennya seperti kalau teman-teman lihat Muhammad Ali gitu ya, the Parkinsonism. And then tremor, the Parkinsonism is actually resting tremor. Yeah. So the tremor is actually when the patient is resting, not action. Action is like you hold the glasses, you hold the spoon. Yeah, this is action tremor. But Parkinson is resting tremor. Yeah? So you rest your hand and then tremor. It's resting tremor. And bradykinesia. So the step of the walk is very little like this. And muka topeng ya. Apa tadi muka topeng? Mask face ya. Mask face ya. Oke. Bisa dipilih nggak? Nggak bisa ya? Oh, cannot ya. Next saja Mas, nggak apa-apa. Next slide. Oke. This one vagal nerve stimulation. Vagal is which one? The cranial nerve. Which cranial nerve? 10 ya. 10 cranial nerve is vagal, nervus vagus. Is stimulation by look like a DBS, yeah, but the electricity stimulation is on the vagal nerves, yeah. Yeah, during I study in Kuala Lumpur, I have an experience, yeah, the operation surgery of VNS, yeah, vagal nerve stimulation. Vagal nerve stimulation, yeah, is the short surgery, yeah, I think only maybe a half until 1 hour only. So the surgeon resect on the patient neck and put the generator under the skin, yeah, atau subcutaneous, yes, this one. Next, Mas. Yeah, like this, yeah. This one, the figure 1 is which one the VNS put the generator under the skin, and like the wire, the small wire, dikaitkan gitu deh on his on patient vagal nerves, yeah. But the VNS have expired battery, yeah. Battery is maybe 6 months, yeah, 6 months. So every 6 months, the patient operate again only to change the battery, yeah, battery, yeah. Maybe this one in currency, in our currency rupiah is maybe 200 million, yeah. 200 million, yeah, this one. Okay, next. Some regulation, VNS and DBS, some regulation, yeah, cannot enter in Indonesia, but I don't know because last week or last month I speak in webinar. The audience said that some center in Surabaya can do it, the VNS and DBS. Okay, next, Mas. Okay, this is EEG. EEG is my passion, so I would like to talk more than the other topic here, because EEG and epilepsy is my passion. Yeah, this one EEG. EEG is divided to the routine EEG and two is non-invasive EEG, yeah, and invasive EEG. EEG is electroencephalography. Electro is electric, encephalo is brain, yeah. Graphy is figures, yeah. So the figures are the result that the record our electricity of our brain. This is EEG. The non-invasive EEG is scalp EEG. Scalp is this one, scalp, and the electrode put on the scalp. This one scalp. Oh, sebelum Mas. Oke, scalp, tempel, scalp itu bahasa Indonesia scalp apa ya, dokter? Kulit kepala ya. This one. So this is routine EEG. So if you go to Sarjito, routine EEG is for 40 up to 60 minutes, yeah. The patient record this one, the result, yeah, the result, and this one the procedure. You see that the figures is this one, any camera, yeah, camera. So we look the EEG brain activity and a time lock with the clinical finding, yeah, this one. So kita mencocokkan, melihat any clinical finding or not, and any abnormality on the brain or not, yeah. Okay, if there are any clinical finding abnormality, this one the joke, no electricity abnormality, it means that this one not epilepsy. This is confirmed not epilepsy. If the patient joke and seizures, yeah, or anything clinical finding but no electricity abnormality, this is confirmed not epilepsy. Yeah. The epilepsy confirmed that the patient any clinical finding with the time lock any abnormality on their brain. This one epilepsy. Yeah. Oke, bisa di play nggak Mas? Ini bisa di play nih. Di play semuanya aja Mas. Oke, yang tengah juga. Yang tengah. Oke, before we do the EEG procedure, we have to anamnesis, yeah, taking history to the patient and to their family, how the seizures happen, how the semiology, semantic is morphology of seizure, logy is knowledge, yeah, knowledge about the semantic of seizure is semiology, yeah, semiology. This one, jerk, flexion of left hand, and this automatism. Automatism is repeating movement. With the movement and patient, and actually this one meningioma. Meningioma both side of their hemisphere. Yeah. So this one is brain tumor related seizures or seizures related brain tumor. Yeah. But a tumor. The next our homework is with Dr. Prasetya is we have to decide the epileptogenic zone with the abnormal MRI. Yeah, maybe, yeah. If the MRI has been showed that this is any abnormality, maybe tumor, abscess cerebri, this one is little easier to take the lesion. But the challenges one is any seizures, EEG finding abnormality, but MRI is normal. Yes, the challenges one. Yeah. Okay, next slide, Mas. Meningioma patient. Next slide. Okay, play lagi Mas. Yeah, this one, a 24 years old lady, yeah, with the refractory epilepsy, refractory seizure. But you see that the patient actually is shaking, head shaking. But I close the identity. Shaking head, this one, yeah. Left hand, and then thrusting of their pelvic, yeah, pelvic thrusting, pinggulnya terangkat. Yeah. Play lagi Mas. This is this is a characteristic of no epilepsy. Characteristic of epilepsy. Although there is any abnormality on her brain, yeah. Her brain is CPA. CPA, what is CPA? CPA, anyone knows? CPA is cerebellum fountain angel tumor, CPA tumor, yeah. CPA tumor has operated in Penang, Dr. Dian, in Penang, Malaysia. This is my patient in Sarjito. Yeah, the patient is very frequent seizures, maybe every day or every week, maybe twice, three times. But no drug can respond. Well, okay, we analyze that CPA tumor cannot produce the stimulation like this. Yeah. So if we learn about anatomical brain anatomy with Dr. Dian Pras, we have to understood that which one the anatomical that responsible with this clinical finding. Okay. For example, if the seizure is hemisensoric, yeah, kesemutan, tingling, numbing, and like this one, numbness, and so on, we have to search or looking for the cortex of sensoric, isn't it? If there was a jerk on the hand, we have to looking for the homunculus of the hand. This one to correlation the anatomical responsibility for the clinical finding. So this movement, the seizure, the type of the seizure semiology is cannot explain with this abnormality on the brain. So we conclude that the brain and the clinical finding is not correlated. So we explore more, investigated more, and we decide that this is PNES. PNES is psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. The seizures look like epilepsy, but not epilepsy. Yeah, the movement is I not epilepsy, not epilepsy. And the thrusting of pelvic is the specialty of figures of non-epileptic seizures. Okay, lanjut Mas. Okay, this one. This one is patient female of 42 years old with ovarian cancer. Ovarian cancer is patient GTCS. GTCS is general is both sides. Both sides. The brain MES was normal. Yeah. So patient with ovarian cancer with brain imaging was normal. But any jerk, both sides. Any opinion? Yeah. So in semiology and semantic of logic, yeah, semantic of morphology of seizure, we learned about general and focal. General as both sides, yeah. Synchronize both sides, not like one. Not like one. Yeah. General is synchronized like one. And focal is one side only, maybe right side followed by both sides, or maybe left side. Yeah, this one. So this one directly both sides. This is general. Maybe this is metabolic. So not related with the cancer and the brain imaging. Yeah. Maybe patient hypoglycemia, patient maybe hypernatremia, and so on. Yeah. Abnormality with the metabolic finding. Lanjut Mas. Oke. Dua-duanya di play Mas. Nah, look the up video. This one jerk myoclonic on the right leg. Yeah, right leg. Leg and hand. Hand and leg. Where is leg and hand on homunculus? Hand and leg. Where's the homunculus? Hand on medial or lateral? Sorry, louder. Louder. Hand. Di mana, Dek? Di mana? Tangan di mana? Tangan kalau dia lurus lebih ke medial atau lateral? Medial. Kalau kaki? Ya, oke. Kita lihat di sini. Kebalik enggak? Kebalik enggak? Ini di lateral apa medial? Imagingnya? Leg medial gitu, dokter. Oke, leg medial. Kebalik ya. Oke, kita lihat. Tangan kanannya gerak enggak? Tangan kanannya. Ya. Almost no movement. No jerk on his right hand. Yeah. The jerk is only myoclonic on the right leg. Yeah. This is 100% correlate with his brain abnormality. Yeah. Back dulu mas, back dulu. Yeah. You look the right figure. This one brain MRI with axial view and coronal view. Yeah. Coronal view that the abnormality, the edema, yeah, the lesion is on left hemisphere. Yeah. So the right side of the imaging is actually the left of this patient. Yeah. So this left hemisphere, the jerk on the right leg, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Next one. Yeah. This one routine EEG. Yeah. Intervention invasive routine EEG. Yeah. So during recording the patient with EEG routine, yeah, in our hospital, we put the camera. Yeah. Coba di play mas. Yeah. Actually, we have some EEG finding with abnormal EEG and the jerk. Yeah, this one. This one called ictal EEG. Ictal EEG. ICTAL. Ictal EEG. Ictal EEG, it means that during the recording, patient have jerk and there are any abnormal on EEG. Ictal EEG. This one. Okay. Next, mas. Okay. After we have procedure of EEG and ictal, we have to determine is it abnormal EEG or not. Time lock with jerk. Is it only EMG, myogenic artifact or brain activity? Yeah. Because mimicking this one, myogenic or muscle artifact with the brain activity. So the challenge is one to describe or to read the result of EEG recording is how to we determine is it artifact or true brain activity. Yeah, this one challenges. Yeah, next mas. Yeah, this one onset ictal and activity as EMG. Next. Yeah. Yeah, we after this one we have to present it to Dr. Pras. Yeah. Is it refractor epilepsy, Dr. Pras? Is this one the site of epileptic chronic zone? And we decide together is it need to operate or not? Yeah. And if we decide operate or not, which one to be operate or resected the part of the brain? Next, mas. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, this is epilepsy center in ASEAN. Indonesian if yeah, actually little bit ya apa ya, agak ketinggalan ya kita dengan negara ASEAN ya. Kita tidak bicara dengan Eropa tapi kita masih bicara dengan negara tetangga kita sedikit ketinggalan ya. Maybe Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand is lead about this center about surgery. This one I study in Malaysia and we conclude about underutilization in ASEAN countries about epilepsy center. Okay. This one about EEG invasive. Yeah. So the previous slide is about uninvasive, non-invasive EEG. This one invasive EEG. Non-invasive EEG, previously that the electrode put on the scalp. Yeah. The invasive EEG, electrode put under the scalp. Okay. Under the scalp. Whether this is only subdural electrode, yeah, like lembaran gitu, ditempel ke subdural, or this is a wire, the depth electrode that put borehole from the surgeon, borehole, dilubangin, and then put the long wire to direct path that we suggest is it epileptogenic zone or not. Yeah. Next, mas. Yeah, this one subdural EEG, and the right side is deep electrode EEG. Next. Okay, next lagi. This one imaging to preparation of epilepsy surgery. Next. And then this one, IONM. IONM is already established in our center, Sarjito Hospital. Yeah. IONM is intraoperative neurophysiology monitoring. So during the surgeon, neurosurgeon like Dr. Dian Pras, or spinal surgery from orthopedist, yeah, need intraoperative neurophysiology monitoring. Why? Because they resect or maybe they open the challenges part of the brain that may be high risk, yeah, to cut, to push, or to burn. Ya kan, ada bakar-bakar juga, the burn. So we monitoring during the operasi fully, yeah, from started until finish. Yeah, yeah. So in our center already we this one to help the surgeon from orthopedic or neurosurgeon to monitor. So patient operate in operating room, operating theater is unconscious, isn't it? Unconscious, yeah, anesthetic agent, isn't it? Yeah, unconscious. But we can command the brain to give some stimulation to motoric and sensory. Ya, jadi pasiennya nggak sadar, tapi kita bisa perintahkan otaknya, ya, their brain to give, gerakkan tangannya, gitu bisa. Jadi this one direct stimulation on the brain. Ya. So this one, spinal abnormality. Ya, this one. Next, mas. Yeah. Okay. The next is thrombectomy mechanic. I think Dr. Tommy, yeah, already give lecture about this one. Next, mas. Yeah, thrombectomy is about vascular intervention. Yeah, stroke patient, yeah, acute stroke patient, and so on. Okay, next, mas. Yeah, this one. Next. Okay, DSA. DSA is digital subtraction angiography. This one is diagnostic procedure to procedure the actual anatomical or actual condition of the vascularization in the brain, ya. Jadi kayak angiografinya jantung, tapi di sini di otak gitu ya. Jadi actual dipandu guiding by X-ray, ya, continuous X-ray, ya, or C-arm. Okay, next. Yeah, like this, yeah, guidance by C-arm or X-ray. Next. Yeah, this one. Next. Okay, this one for example of abnormality on DSA procedure. Next. Next lagi. Oke, ini contoh-contoh saja deh ya. Next. Aneurysm. Next. Tadi Dr. Pras sudah menjelaskan. Next. Ya, oke, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Prasetya and teman-teman. Ya. Discussion, teman-teman, mumpung ada Dr. Dian Pras yang bisa menjawab pertanyaan teman-teman. Ini Inggris jadi ya, biar kami bisa belajar bahasa Inggris. Ya, silahkan raise your hand. Or maybe, okay. Kenalan dulu aja, kenalan dulu. Nama siapa?
Namanya Zia, Dok. Zia. Nggak pakai N. Dari Jakarta, Dok.
Kenalan dulu ya, nama siapa?
Okay, my name is Faras. Actually, I'm not in group B, I'm in group A, but aku salah jadwal. For my question is actually for Dr. Desin. My question is the type of seizures that been explained tadi. Aku pakai bahasa Indonesia, soalnya kadang nervous ya. Jadi kan tadi dijelaskan ya ada yang seizure yang berupa yang tadi enggak epileptik sama yang epileptik, terus ada yang yang cuma sebelah doang terus dua-duanya. Itu gimana sih cara membedakannya? Aku agak bingung secara strukturalnya itu seizure itu bisa dibedakan berdasarkan apa aja, Dr. Desin? Terima kasih.
Siapa namanya, Dek? Paras. Oke, Paras. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, seizures. Seizures is a phenomenon, phenomenon that some motoric or non-motoric, So seizures is can motoric and can non-motoric, phenomenon of motoric and non-motoric. Previous time we only learn about motoric, Kejang itu kelojotan, harus ada tarik, ada kaku, ada hentak gitu dulu, But now the seizures is not only about motoric, This is any behavior changes, Behavior changes, flight, maybe abnormality, gesture, maybe blank stare, maybe wandering, tiba-tiba keliling kelas gitu, So this is abnormality of behavior. Maybe only absent, like play on pause, during writing and then pause. Maybe this is absent seizure, or maybe atonic seizures, Atonic is A itu non, tonic itu tonus, tidak ada tonusnya, tiba-tiba jatuh gitu aja, gitu bisa jadi, Jadi seizures is so many type of seizures, so many type of epilepsy. Okay, this one. The second one is how to differentiate is it seizure epilepsy or not, The seizures is so many different diagnoses. So if you find the cardiac attack, AMI, STEMI, non-STEMI, jerk, is it epilepsy? Maybe no. Maybe this is a correlate associate with heart attack. So look like epilepsy, but only seizures during heart attack. Maybe you find thing about during upacara ceremony, upacara bendera jatuh kayak epilepsy. But maybe this is only syncope, only syncope, only pingsan, Okay. And then tiba-tiba waktu ujian ada anyone syncope, jatuh. Ternyata ketika kita explore, investigate, this is only hyper anxiety maybe. Okay, this one about the differentiate epilepsy seizures and non-epilepsy seizures. The third question about differentiate about focal and general epilepsy. Okay. General epilepsy almost caused by thalamus. If this is true epilepsy, by thalamus. Thalamus is on the mid of our brain. So if any abnormality or any epileptic zone, epileptogenic on thalamus, the epileptogenic is spread on both sides of the brain. There gitu. Kanan kiri. So if the both side in time lock synchronized, so the clinical finding is juk bilateral. Because yang merintahkan command by both side of the brain. This is general epilepsy. How about focal epilepsy? Focal epilepsy is caused by only one side of our brain. But one side is so many part of the brain. It can occipital, can frontal, can temporal, can parietal, isn't it? If this is occipital part of the brain cause epileptic, this is occipital lobe epilepsy. If the frontal brain is frontal lobe epilepsy, and the different finding of abnormality. Occipital may be hallucination of visual. Yeah. So we have patient with hallucination of visual. Every seizures attack coming, the complaint is about seeing, about maybe morphology, lighting, and coloring. Yeah. Any patient with coloring of apa deh? Pelangi apa namanya? Rainbow. The comment is consistent. Previous week, I saw rainbow. He can drawing rainbow. Today, the seizures attack coming, he can draw rainbow. The rainbow is the same, yeah. Which what the pattern of red, blue, and so on and so on is the same. It is consistent. The characteristic of epilepsy is F2 consistent. Not like this. A previous week, rainbow. Today is maybe cow. Next one, maybe animal, and so on and so on. No, it's consistent. Because come from on the side of the same. Yeah, this is about coloring. Ya, jadi ada yang warna-warna coloring, ada yang bentuk, ya, ada yang cahaya. Jadi cahaya. But occipital. But about the frontal lobe epilepsy? Epilepsy is about behavior changes. Ya, can be typical, mudah marah, ya, sensitive, ya, and so on. Ya. Temporal lobe epilepsy about this one, like this in the video. Temporal lobe epilepsy is automatism, the repeating movement. Automatism of hand automatism can, oral automatism can. And usually followed by jerk. Yeah, this focal. Focal is caused by one side of organ. Okay, thanks, Ivan. Yeah.
Thank you, Doc. My question is for Dr. Yeah. Oh yeah. Hello, my name is Kalista. Yeah. My question was, you were mentioned about biopsy, and I often hear about biopsy, but I don't understand what is the function of it. Why do we need to take some tissue from a part of the body, and what do we do with that tissue?
Okay, thank you. So biopsy. Okay, what is the function of the biopsy? Yeah, for example, like this. When there is a patient complaining about something, yeah, maybe, for example, seizure, for example, yeah, and then we evaluate this patient, history taking, physical examination, and then goes to radiological examination. Yeah, we found that there is a lesion inside the brain. Okay, there is a lesion inside the brain. Now, sometimes from radiological imaging, okay, we can conclude, okay, that the lesion is, oh, this is tumor, okay, or maybe, oh, this is not a tumor, this is a abscess, yeah, cerebral abscess, accumulation of pus, nanah, infection, okay, or maybe, oh, this is not a tumor, this is not a abscess cerebri, maybe this is it's only apa ya contohnya yang lain ya, gliosis is a process ya, in which the brain become like necrotic. Ya, jadi nekrosis dari otak itu kemudian bisa menjadi suatu scar, ya, scar tissue. We call the gliosis. Okay. Sometimes from radiological imaging we can conclude, okay, but sometimes we cannot conclude what is it. Okay. So if we cannot conclude what is it, yeah, we have to take the sample, yeah, of the tissue, and then we give it to the pathological specialist, yeah, jadi ke PA, patologi anatomi, yeah, to evaluate or to assess using the microscope, yeah, directly knows the the pathologist can knows the microscope structurally, yeah, is it really gliosis? Is it really a tumor or the other else lesion? So from there, yeah, we can after we can conclude, yeah, what is it actually definitively, and then we can goes to what's best for this patient. Okay, is it chemotherapy? Is it radiotherapy? Or is it only medication? Or is it we can resect the lesion or what? That is the function. Sometimes, and another example, yeah, sometimes that lesion is small, yeah, or maybe it's located very deep down, deep inside the brain that we cannot reach, yeah, from the outside, yeah, from taking directly from the outside. Okay, so if it's small, yeah, we cannot take all of them, yeah, maybe, yeah. So maybe we only put or take a small piece of them. That is biopsy. Ya. Jadi kadang-kadang itu memang kita tidak perlu mengambil semuanya karena kita nggak yakin ini apa kan. Ya, jangan langsung diambil semuanya. Ya, ternyata ini bukan sesuatu yang harus diambil gitu kan, bisa. Sehingga kita take sample. Ya, that is biopsy. And biopsy can be done anywhere, not only in the brain, yeah, but maybe on the muscle, yeah, on the pulmo, yeah, on the liver, yeah, everywhere can be biopsied. Jadi semuanya bisa dibiopsi. Jadi prinsipnya seperti itu. Oke, okay? Is it clear? Okay. Thank you. Any other question? Or maybe from the online group? Any question? Yes, I think there's one that raised hand. Adriana Satria, okay. What is your
Yes,
question? Yes.
I would like to ask, is there any case where craniotomy is permanent or not followed by cranioplasty, or maybe is there any contraindications for the cranioplasty procedure?
Okay, the cranioplasty procedure, okay. Good question. So in cranioplasty, yeah, cranioplasty can be done at the same time, yeah, of the primary surgery or at a different time. Okay, for example, I give you example of craniotomy evakuasi hematom of epidural hematoma. Yeah, because for some reason, which is there is no brain edema or no significant brain edema, yeah, we can put the bone back at the moment, at the same time after the surgery. Yeah, but sometimes in another kind of pathological condition, such as hemorrhagic stroke, yeah, hemorrhagic stroke. So intracerebral hemorrhage, the brain is swell, yeah. The brain will swell. Karena apa? Karena pada pendarahan-pendarahan yang mengenai parenkim otak, ya, itu kan langsung otaknya yang kena. Dia akan bengkak sekali. Okay, it will swell. Ya, sometimes the swell is very significant. Ya, sehingga apa? If we put back the bone directly after the surgery, ya, kalian bayangin aja ya. Misalnya tengkorak dibuka, ya, we open the bone. Kemudian otaknya bengkak, bisa nggak dikembalikan? Nggak bisa ya, nggak bisa. Dipaksa, ya jangan, ya, jangan dipaksa, meletot kemana-mana nanti otaknya. Nah, that is the illustration why we have to menyimpan tulangnya, to put it back later, ya. So that is the first indication if there is a swelling of the brain, ya, significantly. The second one is if there any infection, ya, ada infeksi, ya, misalkan trauma kepala, kemudian ada fraktur, ya, fraktur terbuka, kemudian dia kotor, ya, kotor atau terinfeksi, ya. Nah, kalau misalkan terinfeksi, we cannot put the bone, ya, back saat itu juga, karena dia bisa menyebabkan terjadinya infeksi. So we have to wait, ya, until the infection, ya, Setelah infeksinya itu reda, ya, cured, baru kita lakukan kranioplasti. What time? Depends. Ya, what time depends. Tergantung case by case. Ya, tapi kalau untuk kasus infeksi biasanya kita harus menunggu sampai 6 months. Ya, sampai 6 months sampai kita yakin ya bahwa infeksinya itu sudah reda. Kalau yang tadi yang kasus otaknya bengkak butuh waktu berapa lama ya? How long we have to wait to perform cranioplasty until the brain swelling is recovered ya. Jadi kita harus melihat bahwa kepalanya tadi jadi cekung ya. Oke, that is the time we perform cranioplasty. Kalau masih bengkak gitu ya, bengkak ya jangan. Kita dipaksa kita akan melanggar doktrin Monro-Kelly, ya kan? Doktrin Monro-Kelly. Is it clear, Adriana?
If I may ask a follow-up question, Doc,
Yes.
would that mean that there is a protective procedure for the brain until the cranioplasty?
Pardon?
So would there be a protective procedure before the cranioplasty for the brain?
Will there be another procedure?
A protective procedure for the brain.
Oh, protective procedure. No. So there's no protective procedure. We just have to educate the patient and also the family to protect their own brain. Yeah. No protective surgery. Okay. And it's routine ya, rutin. Jadi kalau kalian ketemu sama orang di jalan gitu ya, misalkan dia kayak cekung seperti itu mungkin dia habis menjalani proses kraniektomi. Ya. Jadi jangan otaknya hilang ya, bukan. Itu bukan otaknya yang hilang, itu tulangnya yang enggak ada ya. And it's normal for people with post kraniektomi. Tapi biasanya pasien-pasien seperti itu rambutnya sudah tumbuh jadi sudah ketutupan ya, tidak terlihat atau dia akan using head, topi. Oke, Adriana, is it clear?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Any question for Dr. Desin? Okay, please.
Yeah, this is for Dr. Dian Prasetyo.
Okay.
So I think in the lecture you mentioned that in the cranioectomy, the bone will be removed and then put in the abdomen or other place.
Yes.
Yeah. How would that happen? I mean the procedure, and where do you put it in the abdomen when it disturb other organs?
Okay.
And then this is a second question, but it's a little silly. In the cranioectomy patient, what if when they sleep they accidentally hit their head, their open head?
Pardon, the second question, can you repeat?
In the cranioectomy patient, when they sleep, what if they accidentally hit their head, their open head with open skull?
Okay, you can use bahasa.
Ya, kalau pasien cranioectomy ketika sedang tidur, gimana kalau tidak sengaja terkena kayak dak gitu?
Okay, yeah.
Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you. The first question about how to put the removed skull in the other place. Yeah, so we have to option actually to put or to menyimpan ya istilahnya ya, menyimpan the bone. The first option ya, the first option in the patient's own body. Ya, itu yang pertama. The second one, put it in the refrigerator. Ya, jadi disimpan di kulkas pendingin. Itu yang punya cuma rumah sakit. Oke, that is the two option. Ya, di luar negeri, ya, keduanya dilakukan, apalagi facility for a refrigerator itu ada. But here, ya, maybe not all of the health center itu have that facility. Okay, so we can move to the other option, ya, put it in the patient's own body, ya, dan itu sudah rutin dilakukan. Outside atau inside itu rutin dilakukan. Outside, maksudnya di luar negeri, routinely it preserved in the abdomen, ya, where part of the abdomen subcutis, ya, subcutis. So we only make a small incision, small incision and superficial incision. Still remember the layer of the abdomen. After the cutis, you will find the fascia camper. You will find the fascia scarpa and then camper. Now we put it in the fascia camper. Okay, or subcutaneous that is filled by fat. Ya, jadi di lapisan yang banyak lemaknya itu, nah we put it right there. Okay, so it doesn't bother any other organ, ya, because it's still extra peritoneal, not intraperitoneal, ya, karena langsung di bawah kulit seperti itu. Itu bisa teraba, ya, it can be felt by the own patient, ya, on patient hand. That is the first option. The second option is the subgaleal, ya, di subgalia. Scalp, subcutaneous, skin, and then the connective tissue, and then the aponeurotic galea, right, and then loose areolar tissue and pericranium, scalp. Nah, we put it in the beneath the aponeurotic galea. Ya, di situ ada sebuah space yang cukup luas, yang kita sebut sebagai subgaleal space. Oke. We can put it right there. Ya, jadi terkadang kalau kita lihat pasien postcraniectomy ada bagian yang cekung, oke, karena tidak ada tulangnya, ada bagian yang menonjol karena di situ letak tulangnya disimpan. Oke. Positive, negative from each of the procedure. If we put the bone at the abdomen, so we make another incision. Kita buat insisi baru, kita buat luka baru, ya kan, di abdomen. Itu untuk kekurangannya, ya. Kalau di sini kita sudah punya insisi ketika kita melakukan craniotomy, ya. Oke, so we put it right there using the same incision. Oke, so in the next procedure, we open the same incision. Kita buka insisi yang lama, ya. Kalau misalkan kita taruh di perut, ya kita otomatis juga buka lagi yang perut kan. Nanti ada luka lagi di sini, dijahit lagi, yang sini juga dijahit, ya. Prinsipnya seperti itu. But it's the same principle. Okay, is it clear for the first question? Okay, the second question about jika nggak sengaja ya, pas tidur ya, atau pas kondisi apapun lah ya. Yes, first, ya, it's safe, ya, because beneath the skin, there's still dura mater, and before dura mater, there is still maybe muscle, ya, muscle, otot-otot kepala, okay, otot-otot kepala, kemudian ada dura mater, ada pericranium. Dura mater, ya, jadi jangan meremehkan dura mater, ya. Dura mater is very tough structure, ya, keras, ya. Untuk kalau kita pegang beneran ya, kalau kalian di praktikum itu misalkan memegang, itu kalian akan merasakan bahwa dia itu seperti lembaran kertas, tetapi dia itu sangat keras sekali. So if ya, for example, patient with craniectomy, ya, cekung nih, ya, kamu lempar kamu lempar batu gitu ya, tuk gitu ya, it's okay, ya, it will be okay, ya, because there's still dura mater right there, ya. Kalau misalkan pas tidur gini, as long as the trauma is not a high energy trauma, it's okay, ya. Jangan terus disengaja ya, pukul bar gitu, ya pasti ambrolnya ya. Tapi kalau cuma hanya sebuah tekanan ringan gitu ya, fine pressure ya, atau low energy trauma, it's still okay. Okay, so we have to educate the patient. Don't play football, okay? Don't play football. Don't do boxing. Right there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other question? 5 minutes. I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah. Any other question, or maybe from online group? No? No other question? No chat from online. No one raised their hand. And here, no one asks more. Okay. If there's no other question, maybe Dr. Desin will add something before we close this lecture. No? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Desin. Thank you.